What was the moment you realized you had been manipulated all along? I was 14 when my little sister was sent away for false allegations against our older brother Chad. She had always been a little loopy, the type to exaggerate things for attention, so I figured that the boarding school would set her straight. And I was right, because when Lily came home a year later, she was a shell of her former self, lost a lot of weight, only spoke when spoken to, barely smiled anymore. At the time, I was convinced she deserved it. After all, she had disgraced the family name and caused nothing but mayhem for no reason. But apparently she was still her ungrateful self, because when Mom made her favorite lasagna, she didn't even say thank you, just pushed it around the plate with her fork. And when Chad reached across the table for the salt, Lily actually flinched. I rolled my eyes and wondered when her exaggeration phase would finally end. Chad caught my reaction and laughed. Guess boarding school didn't completely fix her lying problem. Me and my parents snorted in agreement. Over the next few weeks, I tried to be friendly with her while keeping my distance, especially since during movie nights she'd always wedge herself between me and Chad on the couch. It was like she refused to let me be alone with him without her supervision. "Stop being so weird," I'd hiss at her. She'd just give me this sad look I couldn't understand. One evening, I could hear Chad following me upstairs after announcing I was going to bed. I saw him smirking, and that's when I knew he was coming to collect his goodnight hug, the one where he wrapped his greedy arms around me and grabbed my curves. But instead of telling him to leave me alone, I just shrugged it off. You see, I had successfully gaslit myself into believing that Chad wasn't so bad, so much so that his assault became a part of my daily life. But Lily didn't have that problem. As soon as she noticed what was going on, she accidentally flung herself down the stairs, begging me to help with her injuries. But I knew exactly what she was doing. So as soon as we were alone, I screamed at her. "Why can't you just accept that boys will be boys? Even Mom and Dad say it's not a big deal." She broke out into tears, and I just rolled my eyes. Now Chad is going to be all hot and bothered, so when I go upstairs, he's going to be even more violent. I then proceeded to walk upstairs and lie completely still on my bed while Chad took what he wanted from my motionless self. But Lily still wouldn't leave me alone. And the next morning when the house was empty, she cornered me in my room. "Sarah, before I left for boarding school, Chad, she could barely finish her sentences in between her sobs. His hands, they were inside me." I just laughed. "Chad has been stealing my innocence ever since I was 9. This is just what brothers do in the real world. Grow the F up, Lily. Even Mom and Dad ignore it, because it's not that big of a deal." Lily's eyes widened so hard I thought her face might split. I continued, "You didn't need to go around complaining to everyone about it. You're lucky Mom and Dad sent you to a boarding school instead of somewhere worse." Lily proceeded to try and argue about why it wasn't okay, but at the time I was brainwashed, so her words fell on deaf ears. But Lily, wonderful Lily, never gave up. I was watching Netflix at 1 a.m. when she texted asking me to come into her room. I asked if it was about Chad, and she said no. Said it was about a boy at school. When I walked in, her face was puffy from crying. "A boy at school cornered me in an empty classroom today," she said quietly. "He pushed me against the wall and put his hand up my shirt, kept telling me to be quiet or he'd make things worse. Then he made me touch him through his pants while he pressed against me." My vision went red. "We're telling Mom and Dad right now. We're calling the police. I'll unalive him myself if I have to." That's when she said something that made my stomach churn. "I made it up," she said softly. "That's exactly what Chad does to you every week, word for word. So why is it only wrong when a stranger does it?" The room tilted. My legs felt weak. It was the first time that I felt like Chad had done something wrong. I didn't say anything, just walked out. I stayed home from school the next day, lying in my bed trying to process everything. And that night, I heard Chad's footsteps approach my room. But instead of unclothing myself and letting him abuse me, I resisted. I told him what he was doing was wrong, that he was a 25-year-old man and couldn't keep doing this. In response, he picked me up and flung me across the room. Suddenly, the door burst open. It was my parents. I expected them to protect me, or at least ask if I was okay. But no, my dad grabbed my wrists and screamed in my face. "Why are you provoking him? You know how boys are." Mom dragged Lily from her room. They screamed at her for corrupting me and threatened to send her somewhere worse than boarding school. Chad just stood there smirking. That's when I saw the familiar flash of red and blue. Lily had called the police. Full story on channel, link below.